So these 8 battalion groups, which entered the LDNR in August, from the middle of May, on Rostov polygons, they were preparing 6 to 8 of these battalion groups. Former leader of the pro-Russian forces in Donetsk, Pavel Gubarev, gave out Russia and disproved Putin's lies, who said that the Russian army did not participate in the war against Ukraine in 2014. Gubarev admitted that in August of 2014 brought into the Donetsk Oblast 8 battalion groups of its regular army, and he explained with all the details how this invasion was prepared. According to his words, Russia started to prepare its army to invade Ukraine already back in May of 2014, when there were no military activities on Donbass. And this invasion army was prepared, among others, by Dmitry Utkin, with the call sign Wagner, the same one who, in consequence, commanded the Prigozhin's private military company, and then was detonated with him together in an airplane. But I know that these 8 battalion groups, which entered the LDNR in August and saved the Donetsk and Luhansk national republics. One of these BTGs was commanded by Dmitry Valerievich Utkin, and the preparation of these BTGs started in the middle of May. How do you like that? Not bad, as I predicted many times. The collaborators will get tired of lying about all this crap with an internal conflict, and they will openly admit that Russia, back in 2014, indeed invaded the Donbass, and the Russian army took part in battles, and that's exactly what has happened. Now they openly admit that there was no civil war, no war of Ukraine against the Donbass, as they said back then. There was no internal conflict, but it was a real Russian aggression, which started back then, in the year 2014. It started from the Crimea, may I remind you, and then continued in Donbass. As they are telling us now, absolutely openly and in all colors, the preparations for this invasion started in May already of 2014, and they realized the invasion in August of 2014 in Ilovaisk. And all the stories about some local militias, miners, tractor drivers, who allegedly revolted against Ukraine, were absolute lies to cover up the invasion. And now Gubarev himself admits that there was no independent force made up of all these militias. It was all just a cover-up, and in reality, the fighting against Ukraine was conducted by the Russian army, which was commanded by this Wagnerite Utkin. And respectively, hadn't Russia interfered, if it hadn't pushed in, if the Russian army hadn't come, the Ukrainian army would have put things in order on Donbass, and now there would be quiet and peaceful life, and tens of thousands of Donbass citizens would be still alive. But they saved in August. That is thanks to these forces which came in and pulled out the whole situation, all these cauldrons, Iglovaiskis, that they didn't let tear into pieces. It's a fact. It's a fact. Where these 8 BTGs come from? Where? They fall from the sky, from the moon. We had everything falling apart. We were losing a few cities per day. There was a thought to leave Donetsk. The Strelkov's headquarters moved to Snezhnoye. I came back from Rostov to Donetsk, and I was surprised. Where's the headquarters? The video you are watching right now, all these confessions from Gubarev, all his evidence, it's important to deliver them to as many people as possible, so that everyone knows what is happening in the Donbass, in Ukraine, in reality. So please help to share it, leave a like or a comment under this video so that it can have more views and will get more exposure, and subscribe to Kazansky's channel. This is very important because you can see yourself that today the Russians, or those collaborators who worked for them, and Pavel Gubarev is one of the main instigators of the Donbass war, they say openly, without any shyness, that we in Ukraine, from the very beginning in 2014, were saying the truth about it. that Ukraine was fighting with Russia, not with some local militia, not with some citizens of the Donbass, but instead it was a Russian invasion. Russia attacked us, not some national republics which were not taken seriously by anyone. And the great length the Russian propaganda was going to blame me, berate me, or the other Ukrainian journalists accusing of lying, that we made up everything, that there's no Russian army in the Donbass, that we have an internal conflict, that Ukraine is fighting with the Donbass. All the Ukrainians are saying that there's a war with Russia. It's all not true. Now they, the same people, confirm, they confess that they were lying all these years. We in Ukraine were saying the truth all these years about what is happening. According to my information, from the middle of May, on the Rostov polygons, these 6 to 8 BTGs were preparing, one of which was commanded by Utkin, and this was the prototype of that Wagner, into which everything was formed as a consequence, especially those Graches Svates who came in from the south. Utkin was heavily wounded, but he survived and kept serving. 6 orders of courage, twice a hero. All the justifications of the Russian aggression on Ukraine made by the Kreml are now built upon a lie that there's been a civil war in Ukraine from 2014, and now Russia is trying to end it. We didn't start the so-called war in Ukraine. Contrary to that, we're trying to end it. The war was started, you know this better than anyone else, not by us, but back in 2014. But now, as Russians admit themselves openly, the war from 2014 originally was indeed started by Putin, who gave an order back then to invade Ukraine. No one is hiding this anymore. So Putin is not trying to finish a war, as he's trying to convince us, but he is the one who started it originally. Thanks to him, it's been on for 10 years now. And all these people asking hypocritically, where have you been for the last 8 years? They bashfully conceal that all those 8 years the war was on only because Russia unleashed it in the beginning and then kept it going. Only because of that, the people of Donbass kept dying this whole time and suffering. Hadn't Russia interfered, there would have been no war in the Donbass, because Pavel Gubarev himself admits that the pro-Russian forces, the local forces, they were not posing any independent force. They wouldn't have been able to wage a war without Russia's participation. This is openly admitted by one of these leaders of the pro-Russian forces, and there's absolutely no reason not to believe him in this situation. Subscribe to Kazansky's channel. As you can see, only on this channel you can hear the truth about what's been happening in the Donbass this whole time.